This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. This is episode 168 of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedita, and today we are joined by Charles Rutenberg realtor, Alix Pares. How you doing, Alix?
Good, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on with us today. Just so you know a little bit about what the Good Neighbor Podcast is, we started back in 2020 during COVID when everybody needed to be socially distant as a way for business owners and entrepreneurs like you to talk to the residents in the communities around the surrounding area and tell them what you have going on, whether that would be a listing or whether you're running a special or whatever that is. And now over the last 4 years, the Good Neighbor Podcast has evolved into a national brand. So we have podcasts in Denver, Philadelphia, Atlanta, everywhere in between. I'm fortunate enough to be the person here in Tampa that gets to talk to folks like you. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about Charles Rutenberg and what you do there.
Okay, well, I'm a realtor with them about 2 years and a half. So I started really 8 years ago, flipping properties and learning from this experience. I decided to get my real estate license. So I just decided to help other people to succeed in as a first-time buyer homes, investors, people selling their homes and their properties from the state and out of the state.
So your main focus is residential realty?
Yes.
And do you focus more on working as a buyer's agent or do you focus more on listings?
Both.
So it doesn't weigh one way or the other. Are you nervous with the NAR ruling that's coming down, the National Association of Realtors, that might change the way buyer's agents get paid?
I'm not.
You're not?
No, I'm not. I'm very professional in what I'm doing. I'm being very, professional and honest with my customers. So they have to be away. I'm not scared about that new rule that is coming.
So I know there's multiple Charles Rutenberg offices. Which office do you work out of?
Clearwater.
In Clearwater. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you do like a lot of vacation properties on the beach? Is that a big part of your business, or you kind of stay away from that?
Well, you were asking about what office. So the closest office that I have is Clearwater. However, the area that I most work in is Pasco area, Hillsborough, and Polk County.
Oh, and Polk County. I mean, that's going pretty far east. You got a pretty wide net that you're throwing out there. So you stay completely away from Pinellas County. No one wants to drive over those bridges to go to Pinellas County. No. It's awful. So I can say that because I used to live in Pinellas County and I hated the drive every day, having to go back and forth across that bridge. So your main focus is Pasco, Hillsborough, and Polk County. What part of Tampa metro area do you live? Do you live in Hillsborough or Pasco?
I do live in Hillsborough, Plant City. The lovely Strawberry Festival.
So see, now you just educated me, because for the longest time I thought that Plant City was Polk County. It's Hillsborough County.
That's Hillsborough County, yes.
Wow.
Plant City is the last town of Hillsborough going to east. Mm-hmm.
So you fight a lot of traffic on I-4 when you're coming up to Pasco County, or do you take back roads to get up that way?
I do take back roads.
Yeah, it's better. It's kind of a mess. So you started flipping houses 8 years ago, but what did you do before that? Did you always want to do something in real estate, or before that, did you want to be an opera singer or a ballerina or something like that?
No, I actually, I do sign language. So that's what I used to do in Colombia.
Okay.
That's my career. So I still work in my church with my community with people with sign language. So that's what I really do. But coming here to US, I'm from Colombia. I married my husband, and he's always—
Did you find him here, or did you bring him from Colombia?
I'm sorry?
Did you find him here, or did you bring him from Colombia?
I found him here.
Good for you. Oh, wow. Nice. Fancy. Okay. So you meet your husband here. Were you here, had you already moved here, or were you just kind of visiting here and met him? How did that work?
Well, long story short, his grandma and my grandma, they met like over 54 years ago. They're
Wow.
best friends, and they're from here, I'm from there. So her grandma used to travel back and forth and tell him about me, told me about him, and that's basically how we.
Grandma played matchmaker. That's what you're telling me? Grandma set
Yes.
this whole thing up.
Yes.
So how long have you been in the U.S. totally?
15 years.
15. And did you move directly? Did you work directly in Tampa, or did you live somewhere else in the States?
Plant City. Always in
Plant City.
Yes.
All right, that's pretty awesome. So was it a big? All right, so I have a sign language question. So I don't know sign language, but I know there's certain letters that like you can sign certain letters. Do you sign? It's gonna sound stupid, and I'm gonna look like an idiot for asking this question, but do you sign language? Is there different sign language for Spanish versus English?
Yes.
Yes. That wasn't as dumb of a question as I thought it was going to be. All right. So does it take a while, just like I would think learning a new language, does it take a while to learn a new sign language?
No, it's not. The signing is very easy. It's just like when you're learning a different language. So the third language became easier than the first language that you learned. So there are few different signs, but I think for me it was very easy to pick up. Well, now I sign better in English than when I do in Spanish.
Really?
Yes.
So, well, listen, I failed Spanish in high school. That's a story for a totally different podcast. And the teacher just didn't like me, but that's the story that I'm sticking to. But I wasn't good at it. It took me a little while to get better at it. But I grew up in New Jersey, and my mom, when I was a kid, worked for Ralph Lauren, for Polo, like the clothing manufacturer. And in New Jersey, there's tons of factories. Like there's all different manufacturing factories and all this other stuff. I took Spanish in high school for 3 years. I took Spanish 1 my freshman and sophomore year, and then I took Spanish 2. I learned more Spanish in 1 summer working as a quality control inspector for Ralph Lauren in a factory with a friend of mine than I did in 3 years of high school Spanish. But I don't think I could. I would think that would be hard, the sign language part of it. But why do you think you're better at the English sign language than you are? Because you got to focus on the language, learning it better?
No, when I first learned sign language was in Trinidad and Tobago. So they are English speakers.
Okay.
So that's why that was the first time I learned.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And Trinidad and Tobago, is that a British Virgin Island?
Yeah, that's an island. Yeah. No, well, it's an independent island though.
Okay, all right.
It's not a British island. It's not. It's an independent island, but their first language is English.
So how long did you live there?
14 months.
14 months. So that was just kind of like a pit stop on your way to the U.S.
That was way before I came here.
Okay.
Yeah, that was way before. But I just fell in love with this community and felt some more passion about it. And I learned. And then when I went back to Colombia, that's what I did in college.
So let me ask you this. Coming from another country to the United States 15 years ago, in Plant City, which I'm assuming if it's like Wesley Chapel, it's drastically changed over the past 15 years in Plant City. What would you say coming here was the biggest culture thing that was so different from what you were used to that do you remember it? Like it was like when you came here, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they do this here.
Well, actually, it's funny because when I came from the big city, I came from Bogotá. So that's the capital, that's the big city. So you always have to be dressed up, makeup, hair, hands. It's a big city. I used to work in an office. And then when I came, the first store that I walked in, it was a Publix. So I saw this gentleman, it was summertime. And I remember they were walking in flip-flops. And I said, paradise.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't got to wear 5-inch heels just to go into Publix and have all my makeup done perfectly. It's a big difference.
Paradise. I felt so much relief.
Yeah.
Like looking at people walking, so freedom. So that for me, it was just
It's funny. So I knew I truly had become a Floridian when I caught myself in Publix one day in my pajamas and my little not my flip-flops, my like little Uggs, like moccasin shoes. I had to run to Publix really quick. And I remember going there. And as soon as I walked in, the door opened, but I caught my reflection on the inside door before it opened. I'm like, oh, I'm definitely a Floridian. I just came to Publix in my pajamas and my slippers. So it is definitely a much more relaxed environment for sure.
Yeah. For me, I never forget that. I said, wow, paradise. So it was, yes.
It was like a relief. It was a huge relief. So now what type of work does your husband do? You're in real estate. Does he do construction where he helps you flip houses and stuff like that?
Yeah, he does a little bit. He's a businessman. So he has a dealership, a used car dealership. So I help him with that part. And I learned a lot about the financial process here in US because it's a different story here than in Colombia. So it was a school for me. And it was a very nice experience. I still work with him and I help customers through the financial process. And that helps me to help other people through the financial process, educating people in the financial process when they're buying a house.
So wait, let me ask you this. You said it's different. So does like FICO credit scoring work the same in Colombia as it does here? Do people mostly just pay cash for stuff? Or is it like, hey, I know you, I know your family, I know you're good for it, like a handshake? Like how is it so different?
Well, we don't have a credit score there. There's nothing like that there in Colombia.
Is it personal? Or does nobody have credit, or is it personal references that get credit?
They do have to run your credit, but it's not through we don't have a social security. So it's, they have your name, date of birth, and your cédula, which is your ID there. But it works totally different. They do check where do you work, what do you do there, but it's not based on credit score.
It's funny. I had this conversation with a mortgage person the other day, and it's insane how that one credit score number in the United States basically controls the majority of what you're able to do or not able to do, whether that's afford a car. If your score's lower, your interest rate is higher. Can you afford a house? Even renting a place, even so much so that insurance companies like Allstate, and I'll say their name specifically, but a lot of them do it, where they're looking at your credit score to determine your driving worthiness, which seems a little crazy to me that one score like just encompasses all this stuff. Do you work with a lot of, not on the dealership side, but in the real estate side, do you work with a lot of people and help them, like where they come to you and their credit isn't as good? Do you have a network of people that you use to help build up credit so that they can actually afford a house?
Oh, yes. Almost all of them. So it's a process almost sometimes over 6 months because they have to get to that process to learn how to do it and then get to that point where they are able to buy their house. So yes, it's like an everyday issue, not issue, but challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it's 6 months because not only do you have to correct whatever hasn't been done right, but then you need to establish with these credit services some period of, good credit so they can see your credit worthiness as if over the last 6 months, you just kind of turned it around and built your credit back up.
There is a customer that she didn't have a bad credit. She just didn't want to use any kind of credit. And she was never taught how to do it.
Well, that's what I think the problem. A lot of people, like I've been a longtime proponent of eliminating, in the US, at least, well, I'm old. So I'm in my 50s. We had to take geometry in high school. I have never had to talk about the Pythagorean theorem or angles other than knowing an obtuse angle versus an acute angle. I've never had to calculate geometry ever. I would rather replace that course with a course on balancing your checkbook or understanding how it balances and credit worthiness. Those would be much more valuable life classes as a high school student leading up to growing up than taking trigonometry or geometry, like just useless classes to have to take, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was very surprised every time I have a customer in front of me and they had no idea that they have to have certain score to be able to buy a car, to be able to, and they actually have to have any kind of credit to be able to, even though if they have the cash, if they don't have credit,
Yeah.
they cannot just move forward. So yeah, it's a process of teaching and learning and every day.
And then on top, what makes it even more complicated is there's so many quote unquote services out there that tell you they can do certain things to help you with your credit. And some are legitimate and work, and others are just another way to kind of get money from people and not really produce the results that they claim they can produce. So you're dealing a lot of times as a realtor, and I always find this, you have to kind of be a salesperson because you have to go out and find the business. You have to be customer service to carry people through. You have to know contracts because you're writing contracts. You have to know law because you have to know what the real estate laws are. There's a lot of hats you have to wear as a realtor. So you're doing a lot of very heady work because you're helping people generally buy the largest single investment that they're going to have in their life. With all that being said, when you're not doing real estate, what do you and your husband like to do for fun when you're blowing off steam?
We do love to travel. We do love to travel. We have two little girls. Well, not two. Well, two girls. They bought them gymnastics. They bought them soccer. So we're busy. We're busy with them, and that's our passion. Our girls.
How old are your daughters?
13 and 11.
13 and 11, and the 11-year-old is the soccer player, or the 13-year-old is the soccer player?
Both of them, they do soccer and gymnastics.
Okay, so here's a big question when it comes to that stuff. Are they close enough together in age where they play together, or is the majority of your stuff that you're going to one and your husband is going to the other?
Some days we have to split, but the majority it's been working out lately that we can.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
That is a stressful thing. I mean, running a business, doing what you do to be successful, having two children that age that are active, it is a lot. It's almost like another part-time job on top of your full-time job just to manage the travel itinerary for active children.
We just love what we do. We just love, and it's worth it every time. I just want them to be away from technology, from phones, iPods. Yeah. So it's just an investment that I'm doing with them, that we're doing with them.
So you said you're doing their stuff with the sports, and you also said you like to travel. Where's the last trip that you took? Where is it to?
The last one was Colombia.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say you went back home to visit. So did you take the girls back with your husband to go visit family?
Yes.
How big of a family do you have in Colombia?
How big is my family in Colombia? Yeah. I haven't finished counting.
Really? I figured that too. So you have like a family reunion and half the town shows up and they're all just hanging out.
Yes.
Now, do you have a lot of family here, or like your personal family? Do you have a lot of family here?
Yeah, my mom, my dad, my sister. So that's my closest family. And
how many siblings do you have?
I'm sorry?
How many siblings do you have? Just one sister?
No, and then I have two brothers, and they live in Australia.
Oh, wow. You guys are all spread out, U.S. and Australia. So that's got to be a tough phone call to make, because you got to do it at like 2 a.m. So it's like 2 p.m. or whatever it is, or 6 at night, or whatever their time is.
We figured it out the time, but yes.
Yeah. It's so nice now. I mean, with technology like this, like we're doing here, it's easier to do that. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I dated a girl. Her dad was an executive for Chase, and he was in Japan, international banking. And we dated, and at the time we'd have to make phone calls, like legit landline phone calls. And I remember the first phone bill I got, my parents lost their mind. Now it's not like that anymore. Now you could text somebody around the world if you have WhatsApp, and you can go on video chats. It's easier. It's a lot easier. I think I could get an international girlfriend now and actually make it work. It would be a lot easier. So tell us, the people that are listening to this, and for, fair or unfair, I could throw a rock outside my studio window and probably hit 6 realtors on the way that I hit them. What's the big difference? Why does a person come to you at your brokerage? Why does someone work with you over all the other options that are out there?
Well, I do the best for my customers. I make sure that I guide them in a professional way. I take care of their needs, and I take my customers very seriously. I educate them and I go along the process.
So let me ask you this scenario. You tell me how you handle it. I'm a homeowner. I live in my house, and everything, every comp that you do, every Zillow and Redfin, which are never accurate, they all tell me my house is worth 600 grand. But it's my house, so I want to list it for 700 grand. Do you have to sit down with that client with me and say, listen, Mike, I know you love your house, but we could list it at 700 grand, but nobody's going to offer us 700 grand. Do you spend your time having those conversations with people?
Oh, yes. Yes. And it's an investment. It's very fun to go through that. And it's an everyday conversation.
Yeah.
It's always a customer like that. They will listen to you, but I do rather listen to them. And the exercise is to let's list it for the 700 and do the exercise. Let's wait and see how the how it would show up the first week. And of course, we will do it. We will list it for 700.
See, I'm always afraid.
Might be a customer out there.
Okay, so you subscribe to not there's a sucker born every minute, but more to the, there's a price. Someone's always willing to pay the price if they like it enough. I was always afraid of, because in a past life, I was a residential realtor. I was always afraid of the house sitting on the market too long. That, if I try to educate the seller and say, listen, Mr. Seller, I've done a bunch of comps. I've looked at the area. This is really what the market is bearing right now. We can list it for 700. The only concern with that is if it doesn't sell and 2 weeks goes by and we drop it down to 600, people are going to wonder what the heck is wrong with this house that we did that. So that was always what made me nervous about doing something like that. But listen, every house is different. Every market is different. I mean, when you got your real estate license 2.5 years ago, the market was crazy. It was like you couldn't put a house on the market and it was sold in 4 days. Like it was, and there was bidding wars. The market's a little bit more normal now. Is the biggest thing you're running into people nervous about interest rates? Is that kind of the big conversation you're having every day?
Exactly. Yes. To buy a new house, the interest rate. But hey, if you're paying rent, there's 100% money that you're not going to see back. So when it's your first time home, and always is a good time to invest. It's either rent 100% you're losing, or you're investing a 7% interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, that is the conversation. I mean, explaining to people that when you're buying that property, you don't have to be married to the interest rate. Rates are going to fluctuate. The house, if you like the house is the house you like. You need to kind of go out and get it while you can get what you're looking for. It's hard. Like I've house hunted in Tampa multiple times. My first house it took a while to find it, but when I did, it was perfect. It just had everything I needed at the time. But then going out and trying to find a house in the market when the inventory was limited, it was like you walk through with those buyers that are like, oh, no, I don't like this and I don't like that. And they're checking off everything they don't like. And you're trying to help them to understand that, that's stuff that's fixable as long as you like the bones of the house. If I happen to be listening to this podcast and I'm in the market to buy a house or sell my house, what is the best way for people to reach out and get a hold of you, Alix?
Yes, 813, my phone number, 813-716-8176, or my email, Alix Pares, it is ALIXPARES7 @gmail.com.
So, folks, if you're listening to this and you're looking for a realtor to help you get into that investment property, that new residential dwelling you're looking to be in, whether you're in Polk County, Pasco County, or Hillsborough County, Alix apparently has a car that gets really good gas mileage and her husband he runs a car dealership. She must have a different car every day that's got great gas mileage, driving all around, helping people get into their first home. If you're looking for her number's 813-716-8176 or Alix Pares 7. It's ALIXPARES7 @gmail.com. Alix, thank you so much for being a good neighbor. Thank you for being on the Good Neighbor podcast.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you as well.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com or call 813-922-3610.